You're listening to The Bible Guys, a podcast where a couple of friends talk about the Bible in fun and practical ways.
Hey, if this is your first time tuning in, then welcome to The Bible Guys. This is episode 550. You might have missed a few things.
But if it's not your first time, why do you keep coming back? You just welcome the newbies. Didn't welcome the long-timers.
That's true. That's true. Well, that's my bent anyway, right?
Okay.
I always welcome newbies first. So, hey, we have a great episode planned for you. But before we do, we have something very different. I've never seen this opening before. Have you?
No, I have not.
Yeah, this is called Passage Questions.
Yes.
Today we're talking about David's final instructions.
Okay.
So we pulled together some questions about following instructions.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's the
Here we go.
segue. That's the terrible segue we talk about.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so here's the first one.
All right.
If you had to follow instructions written in a foreign language you don't understand, would you risk it by trying to wing it or to Google Translate every step? I think that's a no-brainer.
Yeah. What do you do? Do you risk it?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on the definition of don't understand.
Do you follow instructions normally?
I guess what I'm saying, yes, I do. But what I'm saying is like, if it's like Greek and I don't understand a single word, then yeah, I'm going to probably Google it.
Well, I think the question says a foreign language you don't understand. So maybe she's thinking Greek.
No,
right? It's literally a foreign language you don't understand, so I don't understand what the caveat is to your...
No, here's what I was thinking. I was thinking, like, what if I partially understand it?
It doesn't say that.
Well, if I don't fully understand
You're not
it,
even following these instructions, dude.
Jeff, if I don't fully understand something, then I don't understand it.
Well, she's assuming you don't understand it. It literally says you don't understand
I can look at instructions that say it's something about the phalange.
I'm telling you. The instructions she's giving you is it's a foreign language.
Yes.
And wait for it. You don't understand it. She doesn't say you partially understand it.
I happen to think there's a gray area here.
There's no gray area.
Partially understand means don't understand.
Oh my gosh, people. Now you see what I work with every day.
Oh, what a burden. What a burden that you are with me every podcast.
This is rough, yes.
All right, I would say, because I'm a step person.
Yeah.
Are you a non-step person?
No, I use the instructions too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So bad Google Translate instructions are better than no instructions.
I use Google Translate all the time.
Do you really?
Oh, yeah, all the time. Well, I'm overseas all the time, and I can't read menus.
Right.
This is very important to me. So I bet you I have, it's still in my photos thing, back when you used to have to take pictures with Google Translate. I probably have 300 photos of things I'm trying to translate, right?
You probably ought to free up that memory.
Yeah, I got a lot of memory on my phone because of that.
Because of that, right?
Yeah, but I use it all the time.
All right, so we're alike in that way.
But the Google Translate things are really funny.
Right.
I was in a restaurant in Egypt, and of course I don't read Arabic, so I'm using this thing, and it's not super accurate in Arabic. And one of the menu items was pregnant woman delivery.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that was, but I didn't order it.
No, I don't think I would order that either.
I didn't want to have to pay for it the rest of my life, so there's that. but yeah, I was like, I'm not sure what that means.
I don't think I'm going to order that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sign up for that. That's really funny.
Yep.
All right, you want to read the next one?
It says, if you followed instructions perfectly, Chris,
yes,
but still ended up with a mess, would you blame the instructions or your own questionable skills?
This is a hard one. Because actually, I'm sure you've done this because I've followed my share of instructions because we're old, right? But isn't it true that you have come
old?
Well, older than the average bear.
Okay. That's true. That's true.
So, after 30 years of being a homeowner, that's what I'm trying to say.
Oh, I see.
Haven't you come across a company with poor instructions?
Oh, tons.
Yes.
Tons of them.
So I guess, again, this is a little bit of a...
But who do you blame?
Well, if it's poor instructions, then I absolutely blame the company.
I do too. We're 2 for 2 on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I follow your instructions and I'm an instructions follower,
yes,
and you gave me bad instructions, then
right.
Now there have been many times where I realized they were giving me bad instructions, and I altered my course and got it right anyways. Wow. But because do you read ahead on the instructions?
Almost always.
Yeah. So I'll read through the instructions and then I'll lay out all the stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'll try to figure out, does this make sense? Okay. And then as I'm putting stuff together, I keep reading ahead the next couple.
Yeah.
Always. And so if you begin to realize, well, if I do this, I'm not going to be able to put this thing on. Well, then I'll alter it that way.
I think I have.
This is a deep conversation.
The only exception that I have in this rule is if it seems really intuitive, even though I don't know how to put it together, but it's like, oh, I understand, the left bone's connected to the right bone over here. And then I lay it all out because I do the exact same thing. Sometimes I won't read ahead because it seems like, wow, these instructions are really good.
Yeah.
So then I won't read ahead.
Okay.
Number 3, if you could ask one question to the person who wrote a particularly confusing set of instructions, would it be, she has written, would it be,
what?
Are you okay? Or did you enjoy writing this while laughing maniacally?
I'm not sure about this question, but both and then more.
I think she was laughing when she wrote this.
Yes.
She probably thought in her head this was really funny.
Yeah.
So, so I'm looking at the instruction writer and I go,
Are you okay?
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Are you okay? Yeah. Did someone hurt you?
Well, sometimes the way some instructions are written, it's like some drunk wrote them, right?
Right. Or did you enjoy writing? Did you enjoy writing this? Ha 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 ha.
There you go.
Laughing maniacally. So, because we don't know how to answer that, just pick one.
Well, speaking of instructions.
Oh, you're not going to answer the question?
Yeah, I'm not even answering now. I said both. And then some.
Okay, all right.
But maniacal instructions.
Yes.
Have you ever read 1 Corinthians chapter 2?
Yes.
1 Kings, chapter 2.
I've read both of those.
Yeah. David gets a little off the wall here in his final instructions of Solomon. So
yes.
That's what we're talking about today.
That was an easy transition because that's why she wrote the segment.
Yes, I think so. So it's pretty crazy.
Yes.
And when I asked you, have you ever read 1 Kings chapter 2? Of course you have.
Yeah, well, I've read the Bible.
Yeah. Big fan?
It's a big fan.
Big fan?
Hey, it's probably a prerequisite to claiming to be a Bible guy.
I've met guys who haven't read the Bible that claim to be Bible guys. So
that is true. That is true.
Okay. Well, we are in 1 Kings chapter 2.
Yes.
We have spent a significant amount of time in the life of David.
Oh, well.
It's weeks.
Well, think about this. How much, you mentioned this yesterday. How much real estate in the Bible does he cover?
Oh, yeah. He covers a bunch and, very significant. And his influence is spread over almost all the rest of it.
Yes.
Right? So one of the central figures of the Bible. And he reflects most of us in different ways, or we reflect him in many ways. So there's a lot to learn from the life of David. Well, here we come to the end of David's life. If you're just joining us, last week we wrapped up the intrigue and the excitement around getting Solomon on the throne when there was a coup that he was able to prevent.
Another coup.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. So very exciting. You should go back and listen to those episodes. And but today we're picking up at the very end. These are David's final instructions to his son Solomon, who sits on the throne now. And it says, as the time of King David's death approached, he gave this charge to his son Solomon. I am going where everyone on earth must someday go. Take courage and be a man. Observe the requirements of the Lord your God and follow all his ways. Keep the decrees, commands, regulations, and laws written in the law of Moses so that you will be successful in all you do and wherever you go. If you do this, then the Lord will keep the promise he made to me. He told me, if your descendants live as they should and follow me faithfully with all their heart and soul, one of them will always sit on the throne of Israel. I kind of wish he'd stop there because then he says, and there's something else. You know what Joab, son of Zeruiah, did to me when he murdered my 2 army commanders, Abner, son of Ner, and Amasa, son of Jether. He pretended that it was an act of war, but it was done in a time of peace, staining his belt and sandals with innocent blood. Do with him what you think best, but don't let him grow old and go to his grave in peace.
Wow.
And then he says, be kind to the sons of Barzillai of Gilead. Make them permanent guests at your table, for they took care of me when I fled from your brother Absalom. And remember Shimei, son of Gera, the man from Bahurim in Benjamin. He cursed me with a terrible curse as I was fleeing in Mahanaim. When he came down to meet me at the Jordan River, I swore by the Lord that I would not kill him. But that oath does not make him innocent. You're a wise man, and you will know how to arrange a bloody death for him. Wow. And then David died and was buried with his ancestors in the city of David. David had reigned over Israel for 40 years, 7 of them in Hebron and 33 in Jerusalem. Solomon became king and sat on the throne of David his father, and his kingdom was firmly established. David's buttoning things up right before he dies, isn't he?
Yeah.
Hey, I got a couple more things for you to do for me, Solomon.
I've always wanted to kill these two guys. The curse. He cursed me with a terrible curse as I was fleeing Manaheim.
Yeah.
When he met me down the Jordan River, I swore by the Lord I would not kill him.
Yeah.
I don't seem to remember that curse.
Yeah, so I looked it up because I was having a hard time with it too. So Shimei cursed David.
You know what? I bet you it was something we skipped.
No. We read this curse.
Did we?
Yep. It happened while David was fleeing from. It's stuck now. It happened while David was fleeing from Absalom.
Yep.
And he gets down to the river. He's getting ready to cross, and Shimei comes out and says, "You're sitting on Saul's throne, and God's going to judge you because of all the blood on your hands and all these things." Well, then later on, news gets out that Saul is dead. I mean, not that Saul's dead, that Absalom is dead. And Shimei, remember, comes to him like hat in hand. "I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking." And David goes, "Don't worry, I'm not going to kill you." Remember, this is that time. Abner, at this point, right, had turned against him, all these things. And he forgives all these guys. Remember, we talked about how magnanimous David was.
Yeah, for sure.
When he finally succeeded and won against this coup.
When he says curse, is he talking about an actual curse? You know what I mean? Like a proclamation.
Well, it was saying you're going to fall off the throne, and so is your family forever.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
That's what. So he's all mad now. David's like, I told him I wouldn't kill him, but
right.
Solomon, you're a wise man. You should do what you know what to do.
But now, after 40 years, I'm no longer king.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, you're king. There's a new regime.
That's right.
The opportunity to do what I always wanted to do.
So I also looked this up. It says, "You are a wise man, and you'll know how to arrange a bloody death for him." That's pretty rough in the English translation.
Yeah.
But the exact translation would really be, "Don't let his white head go down to Sheol in peace." So Sheol is one of the words that can be translated as hell.
Yes.
So he says, "Don't let his old body go to hell in peace."
Whoa. Wow. Well, as if that's not enough punishment, right? Hey, don't make it a comfortable ride to hell.
Yeah. That's
make
right.
Make it an uncomfortable.
That's exactly what he's saying.
Oh my word!
Yeah.
Wow.
So this is what makes David so unbelievable. It's why God didn't let David build the temple,
right? Because
David's a bloody man.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's exactly why God said, "I'm not going to have you do it because there's blood in your hands."
Right.
He said, "I'm going to have Solomon do it because your life has been spent." I mean, think about his entire life, 40 years. Now, he had years of peace, finally, right?
Right.
How many years of peace do you think he had? 10?
Well, he had the time with Absalom was less than a year.
Uh-huh.
And the rest of it was he was at war with the Philistines and the Assyrians.
But then he finally conquered, right?
Yeah.
So probably less than 10.
It was, less than 10.
Yeah,
He
wow.
was constantly in battle.
She was.
Yeah.
And so this poor guy, I mean, even back a couple podcasts ago when God said, "Hey, there's a punishment for the census that he took."
Yeah.
And he said, "I'll give you a choice," which is pretty wild, by the way.
Yeah.
Choice of punishment reminds me of that movie Good Will Hunting. He said, "My father would call me in and put a switch or wrench." And he says, "Choose your punishment." Anyway.
I never saw it.
Good Will Hunting?
No.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, the point is that God says, "Choose your punishment." And one of the punishments was run from your enemies for 3 months. And David said out loud, "I would rather put my fate in the hands of a merciful God than any enemy. Any of my enemies." Right. I mean, think about all his life he had been spent, running from enemies. Right. And he's probably getting PTSD flashbacks, right? Where he's like, "I am not going to do that again. I'm too old for that stuff."
Well, it sounds like a really hard thing, but we have to remember that Shimei was a traitor.
Yeah.
Working for a coup against the king, the one that God had ordained. And David showed mercy in the moment. But he says here, the fact that I made an oath doesn't make him innocent.
Right.
And so that's why he tells Solomon, "Hey, you need to execute him because he was a traitor and you can't trust a traitor."
And it could have been, honestly, that David made that choice to spare Shimei. Is that his name?
Yeah.
Probably for different reasons, right? Not just for the judgment of whether or not he deserved it or not, but also like a political move, how it's being seen. He wanted to send a message of mercy, right? I mean, like he could have made that decision for all sorts of reasons. Yeah. And
well, you see this in Shimei. He forgives. He doesn't forgive Shimei. He chooses not to execute Shimei publicly.
Right.
It's a public thing. And then he also chooses not to execute Abner, who had, gone against him on this moment. And both of those were public demonstrations of, okay, this problem is done.
Right.
Because David understands the cycle of war, revenge, back and forth, tit for tat kind of fighting. And so if David punished everybody publicly right then all of the other enemies would think, well, he's coming for me too, so let's go ahead and plot against him, and then right? But instead, this very magnanimous, kind thing saying, listen, it's done. It's very similar to after the U.S. the Civil War in America, Johnson and Grant chose not to hunt down the generals of the Confederacy. Instead, say, hey, we're Americans. We have to find a way for peace now. Right. That doesn't mean they agreed with each other. It meant if we just keep killing each other, it's never going to stop. We saw that in modern times in Rwanda when the Hutus and the Tutsis were killing each other, right? And this horrible genocide. When it was all done, President Kagame, who has his own faults, but President Kagame came in and said, hey, there's no more revenge. Right, so there are people who need to go to prison, and they put a few people in prison for a while, a lot of people in prison for a while. But the villages took care of the people that were in the prisons, and then when they were done, they would have a celebration. You paid your price. You can come back into society, right? And there would always be the villages would have big celebrations to say there's honor in paying the price for the wrong thing you did, but we believe in you. You're welcome back into the village again. And what that does now is there's this phrase in Rwanda, there's no more Hutus or Tutsis, only Rwandans, right? I think that's what David was doing by passing on his right for revenge with Shimei, passing on his right for revenge against Abner, was saying there's no more Absaloms and Davids, it's just Israelites. Right. That's what he did. Yeah. So there's wisdom in that, a lot of wisdom. Yeah. But now he's like, hey, I'm about to breathe my last breath. You know what to do. Again, another movie quote. Do you ever see The Wrath of Khan? Yes. Yeah, when he goes, "At my last breath, I stab at thee." Right? That's Khan with the melted face. As he's running to blow up the Enterprise. And then Spock saves the day. Anyway, and imagine this: that David was trying very hard at that time to set a different example than Saul. Right. So Saul has to apologize publicly for his, behavior in front of all his kingdom and soldiers for being so ruthless and hunting down David. And then David stands up and says, "Hey, I'm not going to raise my hand against the king's anointed." So David has a habit of wanting to, and especially when it comes to power, he's wanting to send the message that he's not that type of king, which is great. Right. But again, it is very common. We have to understand this too. As bloodthirsty as this is, it is also very common for a new king to come in and then to, take action and to, right some wrongdoings once they're in power. Yeah. Right. I mean, think about it. Bathsheba even said, hey, if you don't take care of this right now, Solomon and myself will be treated as enemies as soon as he is. Right. And that would be very, very normal. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it's the reason why. What's the guy's name? The one who pulled off the coup before Solomon was king. Abinadab, whatever his name is. Yeah, Adonijah. There's his name. It's the reason why too. Everybody at his banquet table ran. Yeah. Right? Yep. Because it would have been very customary for Solomon to send guards and say, no. Yeah, right? Yeah. This is obliterate them all. Yeah, this is my first action, right? Yeah. So we talked real heavy about the violent side of this, but the reality is he starts off saying, I'm going to go where everybody else goes. Everybody dies. And so there's wisdom in preparing our children to understand this life doesn't last forever, right? And death is a part of life. And that there's more than this. And so there's wisdom in that. I think it's important for us. But we shouldn't, because as we're Christians, we don't have to fear as other people fear. I just talked to somebody yesterday who got some really bad medical news, and we talked about that, right? It's not the fear of death now. It's there's sadness about, man, I thought I had more I was going to do in my life, but I'm not afraid of dying. Yeah, how do you threaten a Christian with heaven? Right. So we should have our children not be afraid of dying, but preparing for the fact that we don't want to waste any days. We don't want to waste our time. And then he says, take courage and be a man. And I love that, right? That he associates courage and being a man. He's not ashamed of the idea of taking a masculine position. Men are men, women should be women, right?
Right.
And he's saying, listen, sometimes the man just has to do what a man does. You got to man up, is what he's telling his son now. You don't get to be daddy's little boy anymore. You are the man, right? So now you got to be the man. There's a time when David's standing in that cave, remember, and he turns to his soldiers, who are special forces guys, but they're nervous. And he turns around and goes, hey, you guys have to play the man right now because the rest of the troops see us.
Right.
So they weren't even feeling like being the men right then. But he's like, you got to play the man now, right? You got to at least act like it. So David has this very developed sense of what it means to be a man and a leader. And he's telling us under that. And then after those two things, prepare for your death, be a man and be courageous. You're the man now. Then he says, for the whole rest of that, here's how you're successful. And it's all about leaning into God's words and God's ways. It's brilliant, just fantastic. I wish he'd stop there, but he had some business he wanted to clean up.
Right. Hey, we all, people are just so sensitive about talking about men being men and women being women, in 2024 and everything else.
I would say be a man and take courage.
Right. That's exactly right. Well, I was just going to tell you, I saw this reel on Instagram where a guy's doing interviews on the streets, and he goes up to a girl and he goes, is a man less of a man if he doesn't know how to change a tire? And both girls, they're out in the town or something. And both of them go, absolutely. And then he goes, does that mean a woman is less of a woman if she doesn't know how to make a meal from scratch? Mm-hmm. And they both went, and then it just cuts. They didn't know what to say. It was really, really funny.
So I think that there's a possibility, there's a way of there's a phrase in society now about this idea of toxic masculinity and things. Being masculine is not toxic.
No.
There is an overemphasis on tough guy stuff and aggression and that kind of stuff.
Right.
That is that can cause toxic behavior. But the idea of being masculine, a part of it is, we want to build men and teach them to be courageous because they're the ones who protect our villages. Yeah. They're the ones who protect our towns. They're the ones who protect our children and our wives. It's not wrong to say, hey, you should be stronger. Be physically strong. Learn how to, butcher a deer. Learn how to fix change a tire. Learn how to do the things that men historically have had to do. Otherwise, what's happening is we're all just turning into housebroken humanoids. Right, where we're house broke, and we fit well in walking up and down the sidewalks, and we sit well in our offices. Yeah. And we know how to use a duster, but we don't know how to do the things that are important that men normally are supposed to do. So
we don't say the term stewardess anymore. What do we say?
Flight attendant.
We don't say the term secretary anymore. What do we say?
Assistant.
Right, administrative assistant. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We don't say the term even waitress anymore. Properly, we say server, right? Those words are fine words by themselves. Mm-hmm. Secretary is an actual accurate term, right? Mm-hmm. But what happens is we abandon the whole word because it becomes something that feels like, oh no, mistreating a secretary, that it gets attached to it some negative things. So we just change the word. That's what's happened. That's what's happened with real masculinity. So the true definition of saying be a man and do man things, that by itself is a really important and true concept. Yeah. It's just that, the 1950s, and the abuse of some of those things have stuck on to the idea of masculinity, and it's tainted it. So the society wants to abandon that whole concept. Right, but the bottom line is you can't.
Yeah, I would reject that masculinity is tainted because some people misbehave. I don't think. Listen to me. There are school teachers who abuse children, but I don't think school teachers are tainted.
Yeah,
there are firefighters who steal stuff out of houses when they go take care of people that are had a heart attack. Mm-hmm. But I don't think firefighters are tainted. Mm-hmm. So. It's when we allow groups of people who already have a problem with an idea to attach on bad behaviors as if now, masculinity is tainted. It's not. Mm-hmm. There are some people who behave poorly just like there are some school teachers who behave poorly, there's some firefighters who behave poorly. That does not taint teachers and firefighters. Just doesn't.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't taint masculinity either. And so I reject it because I cancel culture. How about that?
Yeah.
I reject it.
Yeah. Well, you're preaching to the choir here.
I think it's totally legit for us to go, no, I'm not going to embrace that. I think teaching my sons to be men, teaching my daughters to be ladies, there's value in that. God made us that way. That's what he's doing here. And so, yeah, it's a challenge. And this is what David's doing. He's trying to make sure he sets up Solomon to win. And hey, the only way you can do that, your success is going to come from following God.
That's great.
And I love it, man. I think it's great.
That's
so
great.
I wasn't saying you were rejecting that, by the way.
No, I know.
I was agreeing with you.
Yeah. You were saying to the world.
To the world.
To the world. I proclaim.
To the world. I proclaim. I reject. I cancel cancelers. Yeah.
By the way, I didn't get to do my joke, which is the best joke of all. These are David's final instructions. Solomon stands up the next day and goes, "My father's final words were."
Princess Bride.
Yes. Yes. You got that one. All right, that's our time. We'll see you next time on the Bible Guys.